We humans are fluid, ever-changing creatures, and I feel for myself that it is no better articulated than the ever-changing status of my persona. If you've been here for a while, or if you've jumped around my videos ranging from young teenager to now, you've probably been a witness to this change. My channel's birth comes from storytime animation influence, which then had its own iterations, morphing away from that style, leading into my overalls, that was a great era, and then entering into a whole heckin' rebrand of going from Beth Animates to Bumblebeth, making its way to this clown, which as you can see, I am currently not using. Now, why could that be? Could it be that after using her for one video, I decided I don't like her after all that work that went into making her? Possibly. I am currently Bethany, Sketchy Edition, because today we are entering the wacky and wonderful world of PNGtubing. Why? I thought it'd be fun. And a little easier than me having to go in and edit my persona in every frame, like right now. And since we've all got to work on that delayed gratification, you don't get to see her until the very end. Alright, let's get going. I knew going into this that I wanted to keep the clown theme. Heck, even before I decided to make a PNGtuber, I'd planned to redesign my persona. I still wanted her to be a clown, but I almost wanted to return to my simplistic roots, something less intricate like an illustration, and something a little more silly and recognizable. I thought my clown was cute, but she didn't really reflect the inner me. My main considerations were keeping her a clown, making her more simple, and remembering she needed something to be kind of bee-themed, which I almost forgot to add multiple times, but I knew I ought to, considering my name is Bumblebeth, like Bumblebee. This is how she started. Very cute, very goober, earless, and green? Maybe. The fully green thing didn't really stick. I found it kind of off-putting, to be honest. She looked kind of ill. I also did a bunch of iterations sketching her on paper in my sketchbook, which I can't show you because that sketchbook I drew it in is on the other side of the country. My bad. So here, you can see these sketches I drew of her after the fact. Just pretend these were the original concept sketches, okay? Okay. The final design didn't change much from these initial sketches. I mostly just tidied things up, brought a little bit of detail back into her side pieces of hair, and regrettably gave her a mouth. I really liked her mouthless, but I also knew the coolest part of PNGtubing is having the mouth open and close, so I allowed her one, as well as giving her ears and stretching her eyes out a bit more. I think my favourite detail to the albeit very simple design was actually an afterthought in the process. I'd realised I'd once again forgotten about the bee theme, so I kind of just chucked in the dark green onto the ruff to mimic the black and yellow stripes of a bee. And I think it worked really well actually. It's a subtle detail that doesn't necessarily have a deeper meaning, but when you match it with my bumblebee theme, it kind of makes more sense. But basically, I'm really happy with her design. I feel like I identify with this little goober a lot more. I try not to take myself too seriously, and I think she reflects that well. I'd seen a lot of people recommending PNGtuber Remix, so that's what I went with. I also chose this program as the ever-reliable Blue Biscuits had created a tutorial on the program, so I was able to reference that to create my own. I wanted to make sure I felt prepared to use the program, so I quickly doodled something and chucked it in. Was it confusing? Yes. Did I figure it out? Maybe. Listen. I still don't know what half this stuff does, but I know how to make this dude open and close his mouth, and that's all that matters. In order to PNG tube, you need to make all the different little pieces. I actually did this in 2 parts, starting with the base and neutral arms, eyes and mouth, importing it into the program just to test it, then going back and finishing the other pieces. But for the sake of this video, we'll talk about making all the pieces here. When creating the base, I thought about what needed to be separate. I decided to keep the head and chest/neck separate, even though at the time I wasn't planning on moving either part, but rather so I could keep the separate hair pieces, like the pigtails and front pieces, together with the head, as I'd planned to make those move around a lot more. In order to create all the different states I wanted, I looked through all my old character drawings, thinking about which emotions and arm movements I most wanted to include. I quickly scribbled out this key for all the different things I wanted to make in order to keep track. When I finished drawing one thing, I would go in and tick or circle it. I designed different faces all together before remembering not only were the eyes and mouths meant to be separate, but I needed to make open and shut mouths, which I clearly kept fighting against because some of these expressions were designed to be closed mouths. Old habits die hard. I pretty much kept the same shapes but changed them to being open mouths. Once all the pieces were finished, I got to go through the really fun and riveting process of manually exporting every piece as its own PNG. Honestly, do any Clip Studio experts know an easier way to do this? Like, this took me so long. But anyway, after that lengthy process, everything was ready for us to go and open PNGtuber Remix. Okay, the moment we've all been waiting for is here. Well, her pigtails are on top of her head. Yep, cool. It's all good. Just had to go reorganize it with the Z order and yeah, all that stuff. We know what that means. Making the initial animations without a bazillion layers was actually pretty easy. Setting the mouth to open and close was pretty simple since it's got the clear should talk drop menu where you set the open and closed mouth. The harder part at this stage for me was getting the bouncing happening. I knew I wanted it to be more like jittery than like a big smooth bounce, like she's excitedly yapping away more than like jumping on the moon. Getting the perfect match of gravity to bounce amount was a very finicky process, but I came to this, which I was pretty content with. It was also pretty entertaining just randomly exclaiming to test it. I was very happy with all that I'd done, closing everything down. Yeah, I didn't save the file. I don't even know how. I can't remember if it asked me to save before closing or not, but when I went to scrounge up the file to move on to making the hair and whatnot move, it did not exist. Because I never saved it. So you can imagine I procrastinated working on this for a while, but when I was finally ready for round 2, I breezed through what I'd already done and got ready to make the hair move. Initially, I'd envisioned her hair bouncing around at a drag as she spoke, until I found you couldn't really link it to your voice, at least as much as I could figure out. So, to compromise, I connected the movement to my mouse, switching the hair around as I spoke. I moved the anchor points from the hair pieces by holding control and clicking. This sets where the hair is going to pivot from as it moves. So once I had that, I went to work playing with the animation, deciding how much I wanted the hair to move, the angle, and the left to right. Here are the settings I landed on. The settings for these things are very dramatic. I tended to barely change values, because when I did, they went, whoa, flying away. I also decided to add a very slight tilt to the head since it helped her feel a little more alive. I felt like altogether it kind of gave the impression of when a character's hair gets really ruffled and big in Ghibli movies. Very cute. The fact that there's no way to undo movements was kind of frustrating. I accidentally moved the head when I was trying to move the anchor point and couldn't put it back to the exact place. Instead, I kind of had to just guess where it went and hope for the best. I quickly chucked in a blink setting as well to cap off all these initial settings. After I was happy with all these animations, it was time to add all my expressions and arms. Oh boy, this was a process. There isn't much to say other than the fact it was really tedious. I basically matched all the pieces to where they already were on the sprite tab, like all the eyes were parented under the head, the mouths were with the mouths, arms with arms. I hid everything and then went through and created 20 different states, creating the different mouth and eye movements for each, For some where the arm was up, I decided to add a little tilt so it could move up and down. The very final thing I did was reorder all of these states so the arms and eyes were in some semblance of an order. I matched up the faces so I could quickly move from one expression with one arm to the same expression with another arm. I might end up adding more combinations, but for now I think 20 is plenty. I thought I could easily remap just writing down my desired order and reordering them by changing the value. This didn't work, so I ended up re-adding and naming everything in the order I desired. PNGtuber Remix, whilst having some mild annoyances, is a great program that I'm very grateful to have been able to use for free. I believe it's still receiving improvements even though it's already quite good. I look forward to seeing it develop more in the future. And with all that, let's see our new PNGtuber in action. And here she is! I'm really happy with how she turned out. I feel like she's going to stick around a lot longer than my previous clown. Being a PNGtuber adds a layer of quality that I really like too. I had a lot of fun creating this and I hope you enjoyed watching. I really appreciate you making it this far. Let me know what you think below, whether your thoughts on my new design or creating PNGtubers in general. Have you ever tried to make one? Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.
Weird and concerning. Bite me! This is probably you weirdo's fault! I've never seen that symbol before.